Welcome to the Efficientpreneur Show with Ahmed Al-Karemli, where you learn how to build and scale your business profitability online with less time, effort, and cost, so you can enjoy a fulfilling lifestyle.
Hi everyone, this is Ahmed Al-Karemli and welcome to Be Efficient TV. The mission of this web TV show is to boost the efficiency of your business and life through tips and tricks from leading experts. And today I have with me Dr. Bob Rausch. He's a leadership and psychology expert and the CEO of Energy Driven Leader INC. Welcome to the show, Dr. Bob.
Thank you, Ahmed. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's my pleasure. Why you decided to study psychology and then you did a PhD in clinical psychology?
The event that really shifted me or moved me to psychology is when I was in the Air Force. My father took me back to the airport, and we were having coffee, and his coffee cup ran out, so I went up to get the coffee pot. The waitress wasn't there, and I filled his cup, and then I went and filled a couple other people who were waiting in the restaurant. And when I went back to the table, my dad said to me, "You have always been that way. You've always been a person who wants to serve other people." And that really resonated with me, and I thought, I need to get into a profession that helps me really understand people more and to serve people more. I truly believe I have the gift of encouragement and service to others. I just love doing it. The clinical part of psychology was when I got into my BA and my master's, I thought, I need to know about abnormal behavior, because if I know more about abnormal behavior, then I'll recognize normal behavior more effectively. So that's why the clinical part, and also I truly believe that people are respecters of people, and I felt like having the PhD would open more doors for me in terms of helping others.
You did your degrees a bit late because you served at the Air Force at the beginning?
Yes, sir, I did. Yep.
What did you learn serving for the Air Force, and from the war you participated in Vietnam as well?
When I got into basic training, I decided about 2 weeks after I was in basic training that I had made a huge mistake, that I needed to get out of the Air Force. And so I went to this training instructor, and I told him we always had to be very respectful. He wasn't very nice to us, but that was part of the process. And when I went to him, I asked him, I need to go back to Baltimore. And he said, "Sit down." And I always did what he said. And I sat down, and he said, "Listen, this is the easy part of your life. The rest of it is going to be difficult." And that was another one of those resonating moments that, I thought, I need to stick with this. And so I did. I stuck with it. And in doing that, I learned a great deal about being part of something that was important. What I learned from the war was nobody wins. No one wins in a battle. I'm not a warrior type. I'm not a war type person. But what I saw in the Vietnam conflict and all of that is there are no winners in any war.
Then you started hosting a radio show, I think in the 80s or 90s. How did you get into that?
After I started my private practice, I got my PhD in Santa Barbara, California, and I went back to Louisiana. Wasn't where I was from, but I went back there because I served in the Air Force there. And what I knew is that I needed to broaden my mission, my purpose. And one of the master level guys on my staff, on my team, had been a disc jockey, and he had a radio station there in Louisiana. And I told him, I said, "Hey, David, why don't we start a program, a call-in program called Strategies for Living. And what we'll do is we'll go down every now and then, and we'll take some of our other associates and go down. And we had the greatest time with that call-in show. It was from 5 to 6 o'clock from Monday to Friday, and we had a great following with that. When we dealt with issues like anxiety or depression or marriage or all different types of issues that we had studied and we were experts in.
It was called Strategies for Living?
Strategies for Living, yes.
This episode is brought to you by the Efficientpreneur Club. The Efficientpreneur Club is a private and affordable one-on-one business coaching club for business owners and entrepreneurs who want to build and scale their business profitability and performance with less time, effort, and cost, and without risking their freedom. So whether you are still figuring out the right business model, strategy, and pricing, or you need help to improve your funnels, ads, sales, and conversion, then the Efficientpreneur Club is for you. Your business challenges are not going to fix themselves unless you fix them today. And the consequences of not addressing that today is your business profitability and performance will not improve, and your relationships and health will continue to be affected. It's no wonder that building and scaling a business becomes so stressful over time, but it doesn't have to be that way. The Efficientpreneur Club will help you take your business to the next level with a private and affordable one-on-one coaching with me personally, tailored to your unique needs. I will help you clarify your direction, set a strategic action plan, and guide you step by step to build and scale your business efficiently. The Efficientpreneur Club will also provide access to an extensive how-to video library, the most highly recommended tools, and a supportive community of like-minded business owners to help you along the way with feedback, encouragement, and advice. The Efficientpreneur Club is the perfect place to be if you want to maximize your profits, minimize your workload, and scale your freedom and efficiency. So check it out at efficientpreneurclub.com and say bye-bye to generic courses, secretive gurus, and expensive mentors. What kind of doors this show opened for you, and how long it was on? Like how many years?
I did the show about 2 years. Then I left the show because I was going into leadership development and coaching, and I think the show lasted about 5 or 6 years after I left. Now the benefit was that, again, our name got out there, so it was a really good marketing tool. But the real benefit to me is we had some people who couldn't afford therapists, couldn't afford to go for counseling or whatever, and they literally would call in and we'd do a little counseling over the radio. So it was not only very helpful for people, it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. You know, every now and then we'd get a kooky kind of a call in or whatever, but we made those enjoyable, and so it was good.
You've been practicing psychology for over a decade. Why you decided to transition into public speaking and coaching?
You know, I get the feeling that I'm a little like you because you know presence here. I mean, with your program, and I have always felt if I could get to the top leaders, either of a company or a country or whatever, I would have more impact on the people in that company. So what I decided was leadership development would broaden my perspective and broaden my opportunity to touch the lives of key leaders. I only work with top leadership, CEOs, CFOs, the corporate level executives. And again, it has. I mean, so I impact the CEO, and he or she impacts their leadership team, and then with that, I mean, a whole company gets to be impacted by the work that that I do, and I say that humbly. It's I love my work, and so it broadened my opportunity to touch the lives of other people. And it was I actually had gotten tired of my private practice. That's when I got into the energy material, and I started really looking at energy in a human being, and that was kind of my entree into starting writing books on energy and helping people use their energy more effectively.
But why didn't continue the radio show? Is it because it was focused mainly on living or like psychology, not energy and coaching? Because it would help you with credibility and to get more clients, I guess, for like from companies or.
Yeah, it did. It helped me get more. When I was in my private practice, it helped me get more clients. But I didn't need more clients. I was at a stage in my career in my private practice where I had plenty. I wanted more clients for my associates, and that was what was really important for me. I was there because I had founded Family Therapy. It was called Family Therapy Center. I founded Family Therapy Center. I had 4 therapists working with me. They had master's level, and so yes, it helped me help them, but also with leaders, with people who were driving home at 5:30 or 6 o'clock at night. I mean, they were business people for the most part, or professional people who would turn on our program, and where they would never have gone to a coach or a therapist, they listened to that program. So I had an opportunity to touch their lives as well.
You never thought of making a program, another radio show focused more on business leaders?
No, I didn't. I feel like if I got myself too divided, then I may not do either one of them well. I've often thought, kind of a double-minded man is unstable in a lot of ways. And so when I started working toward my coaching strategy and building that coaching strategy, using the energy concept, then I really need to focus on getting more experience. I had never been I had never worked in an organization, and I can tell you, Ahmed, the greatest things that ever happened to me, honestly, I had nothing to do with. I really didn't. I was doing how I got into the corporate work was LSU in Shreveport, Louisiana, invited me to do a workshop for local business people and with one of their business PhDs, and I did that, and my part was on energy and performance, and from there, one of the CEOs called me a couple days later and asked me if I would come and work with his leadership team. And I did. I worked with his leadership team a couple years, and the rest is history. I just, I started there, and it just kind of referral from him and others, and it built my consulting business.
Since then, you quit completely the psychology practice?
Well, I stopped the private practice, but I have to tell you, probably know this. There's a lot of leaders that need a psychologist. I mean, they are
decision making and all this stuff in business is related to psychology.
It is. It absolutely is. And the more I got into the coaching, the more I realized that my PhD was a real benefit in helping. For example, leaders won't talk. They can't talk to their subordinates because of how it would look. They can't talk to their families because their families can't get a perspective. But they can talk to me. And I've heard a lot of stories that were that had to do with more psychological problems than just business problems. So it was enjoyable to switch and use the psychology in leadership.
Do you focus in your coaching on the individuals, the CEOs, or like the executive team, directors, or you go as a consultant to improve the entire or the performance of the company?
I always start with one person, and that's the CEO. Now, I've never had, well, I can't say never, maybe a couple times over a period of 15 or 17 years, I've had a CEO that they just wanted the work themselves. But when I start with a CEO, invariably, he will want or she will want me to do work with the leadership team. And so I'll start individual coaching with the leadership team, but also I'll do team coaching as well. So I'm starting with a leader. I'm building, helping build rapport between the leader and his leaders or her leaders. And I end up doing the whole leadership team, and in some ways I go down to that next level as well. So it impacts the whole company.
You are focused on energy. How do you define energy?
It's really not hard, but it's really unusual. Energy is well. Can I tell you how I got into the energy thing first?
Please.
I told you I was really getting tired of my private practice. We had in the United States new insurance programs, managed care, a lot of things that reduced my income, and it reduced my ability to do what I wanted to do best, and that is just help people. And I remember one night staying at my office late, and I was walking around. No one was there. I was walking around, and I was praying, and I was saying, I got to have help. The people I'm working with aren't getting any better, and I'm getting worse. I mean, I was just really exhausted, and I developed a lot of anxiety around what I was going to do and what I could do. Well, I got this answer. I mean, it wasn't a verbal answer, but I got this answer that, Bob, these people are out of energy. And I've always thought, Ahmed, that the simplest things in life are the most profound. And so I thought that energy concept was profound. And so the next morning, my first patient came in. It was a man. I had a lot of men that came to therapy. He came in, and I asked him, so how did you use your mental and emotional energy this week? And of course, he looked at me like the deer in the headlights. He had no idea what I was talking about. I didn't have any idea what I was really talking about. But sooner than later, I got it. And that is that we have within us an electrical charge, an energy. When we're born, we are born with this biological energy that has various frequencies to different organs in our bodies. And when we die, we don't have the energy anymore. So energy is a resource that drives my mental, emotional, and physical aspects of my life. I move my hands, I'm talking to you, all of that requires energy. The difficulty is that most people don't use their energy for positive things. They use their energy for worry or discouragement or frustration or whatever, or conflict on a leadership team, rather than using it for performance. So it was a no-brainer to me. And actually, even with corporations, you would think that a soft issue like energy wouldn't be acceptable to people who are running a business. But I have never had anybody push back, because I always attach that energy to performance. If a leader wants their people to perform, and yet he or she's beating them half to death, not communicating with them or criticizing or whatever, then what happens is he's taking the energy away from the people, and yet he's still asking for 100% performance. It's impossible. It's like putting gas in your automobile, putting it in neutral, and stepping on the gas, but you're not going anywhere. And that's what I find happening in an awful lot of companies. The leader doesn't understand how energetically he destroys the the energy of his or her people.
How do you, is there a scientific measurement for energy, personal energy, other than just feeling it, that someone having the energy or performing well or his numbers are well? Is there a specific tool to measure the personal energy?
I don't believe there's a specific tool, but what I did after I got into the energy study, I started finding physicists who obviously they're all about energy. And so I found, read about a gentleman in Germany, Dr. Fritz Albert Popp, who is he's a biotheoretical physicist. What he studies is energy in the body. What Dr. Popp is looking for is a cure for cancer. And he thought that when he discovered this energy, which are called photons, he thought that we would eat vegetables or we would eat foods or whatever, and we would, because vegetables and all that go through photosynthesis, he thought that we got the photons and then we eliminated the rest. But what Dr. Popp discovered was that is not true. That our DNA in the womb, our DNA creates these frequencies of energy, and each of our systems has a specific frequency. For example, your stomach, from your DNA, has a frequency of energy that only is read, the cells are read this frequency, and it's just for your stomach. Your heart has another frequency. So we have these frequencies of energy in our body. Now he scientifically, I can't explain it, but he scientifically discovered that. And what he said was these frequencies do two things. They help our cells communicate so they know what to do, when to do, and how to do it, all that stuff. But the other thing that he discovered was that when a cell gets sick, the frequency is like a neighborhood watch. It calls for the immune system to come in and repair the cells. Now, the other thing that was fascinating to me was that he said there were only two things that literally killed the energy or broke the frequency. One was cancer, and the other was stress. So you think about the number of leaders who are under incredible stress, and what they're doing is they're really setting themselves up not only to interfere with those frequencies, but setting themselves up for illness, cancer, heart, all that stuff. And so using your energy wisely is pretty important. And I apologize, I don't know all the apparatus and all that Dr. Popp used, but he's adamant that we are not a chemical being, we are an energetic being. And it works great in organizations.
When you work with CEOs or executives, what kind of questions you ask to assess their performance as leaders?
I have basically 5 steps in my coaching, and what you're asking is really what's the first step. So I will ask that person, what is your personal purpose in life? Most people operate by default. They don't have a purpose. And so I want to know what that purpose is, because that would be an area of coaching. The second thing that I ask...
So just in point 1, purpose in life, not purpose or vision for the company.
Purpose in life.
Okay.
Yeah, what is your purpose in life? And then I ask them, what are their strengths? What do they believe are their strengths that they bring to the table? And along with that, the third thing is, what are your personal objectives? What do you want to accomplish in life? Not just the overall vision or purpose for your life, but what is it that you want to accomplish, and what specific objectives do you have?
Can we say objectives are goals? You
can say that. Goals are kind of like the thing that I'm going to achieve. Objectives are the ways I'm going to reach those goals. So if I have a purpose that says I want to make a difference in the lives of people by discovering their potential and maximizing their energy, that could be a goal. That is my purpose. But my objectives would be several things that I'm going to do on a daily basis to reach that particular purpose or that particular goal. So they're the steps. They're the steps as we go along. So I want to know about that individual. I only use one profile, personality profile. It's called the Berkman profile, Berkman International, and that helps me understand two things about a leader. One, it helps me understand their strengths on 11 areas or 11 components of behavior. But two, it helps me understand their needs. For example, do you have children?
No, I'm not married yet.
Okay. I have 5 boys, right? So I can tell you that every one of my boys, when they came home from the hospital, had a different personality. They had different needs. And in an organization, if we fast forward to people going into a corporation, people will recognize the strengths of one another, but they don't recognize what that person needs behaviorally, and a lot of times that's what causes the conflict. The other thing, referring back to the energy, is that if we don't get those behavioral needs met, then we get into stress, and then we're burning our energy for all the wrong kinds of things.
But how about if the needs are needs for bad things? How do you correct that?
The needs that I'm talking about are behavioral needs for things like, I am a very candid communicator. I like one-on-one communication, and I'm very candid. My need, however, is to feel value to you and you personally, so that we get off the air and you say, gosh, Dr. Bob, that was really, insightful, or whatever you would say, or hopefully you'd say that. And
I'm enjoying it.
Thank you. But when we talk about bad needs, typically a bad need is it's not instinctive. A bad need is a cover-up to try to get something in a negative way. For example, if a leader is hostile toward a team member, that's not always about the team member. Sometimes it's about the leader. The leader just doesn't like the person or whatever. So we have anxiety is another one. Anxiety we would call a bad behavior. I mean, it makes people, very nervous and everything else. But anxiety is created by something. It's created by we're not getting a need met, and so we end up living in this anxiety or in this depression. Am I answering the question?
Yeah. But I just wanted to ask you about the purpose. The purpose it should be a very general thing, like I want to add value to other people, or I have to add value in terms of saving the dolphins, like very specifically in a specific area.
Well, it could be both, and here's typically a purpose is, first, it's what I bring to the planet. I am an encourager. I am a person who likes to see others be successful. I mean, I brought that to the planet. You personally have done some behavior you have some belief that you've had your entire life. You did it when you were 5, 6, 10, and you do it whatever age you are now. We define what that key gift or that key talent is, and then the second part of a purpose is, how do I use it to touch the lives of other people? So, for instance, if I was born with the talent to do mathematics, which I promise you, I was not born with the talent to do mathematics. But if I'm born with a talent to do mathematics, and I say I am a very logical individual, and I'm very conscious of my ability to figure out mathematical equations and all that, that's the first part. The second part is, how do I use my talent of math to touch the lives of individuals, or touch the lives, and person could be a teacher, person could be a physicist, a person could be anything, but we define our talent, and then we define how we want to use that talent.
So after you get the answers for the purpose, strengths, and objectives, then what you do?
That's the first part. The second part is, I call it virtue. It's more of virtue is a great Greek word that means energy. It's another word for energy. It could be your values. But what I want to find out after they've defined that purpose, how are you using your energy on a daily basis? Are you wasting it? Are you defueling yourself because of worry, because of frustration? Are you living in conflict somewhere? I want to find out how they use, and I do have a process that I use, some assessments that I use to define. For example, some people use their energy to please people because they need people to like them. And everybody, all of us we want to please. But if you get into the place where you need to please, then what happens is you're operating from a negative behavior. It was a positive that became a negative behavior. So I began to look at all of those characteristics, or all those things that how they use their energy from a negative perspective and also from a positive perspective. Now, we use our energy, again, three ways: mentally, emotionally, and physically. The purpose comes from spiritual energy. We all have a human spirit. Now, I'm not talking about religion. We all have a human spirit. You've heard people say, that individual is a spirited person, or that's a spirited team. The team has high spirits. Well, that's not just how well they play. It's the idea that it's their belief, it's their heart belief about what they're doing. And so my thing is to find out what that is, and then to find out how they use that in their daily life.
And then you get into more deeper into their habits, and how they do the things, and how they answer emails, or how they do their exercise, or you don't get so deep.
How they communicate, how they do work-life balance, how they do, how they create collaboration on their teams, how they communicate with their children or their spouse, or all of those kinds of behavior, because it affects everything. And I'm looking for that. Again, if I have a leader who goes in, great example. I was talking to one of these leaders. I have a company in Florida that I'm working with, and it's a huge company. And the CEO was going to interview a CFO for the CFO position in his company. But what the CEO is doing is that he was operating off of how the old CFO was, and he was coming up with these. What if I don't like him? Well, what if he just he's not humble, or he's not this, or? And I told him, I said, you're setting yourself up to reject this guy. You're not giving him a chance to show you his behaviors, because you've already determined in your head there's something wrong with him. And if you think there's something wrong with him, there's going to be something wrong with him. So that's kind of what I'm talking about. So what I said to him was exactly that. You need to clean the slate here. Here in Texas, we call it pump your brakes. You need to kind of pump your brakes and accept this guy just the way he is, and see what you like about him. It doesn't mean you have to hire him, but he was using his energy for all the wrong reasons.
How long usually this process takes to coach a CEO? Like, is it sometimes 4 years it takes, just like monthly visits, or sometimes you just go for 1 month and you finish it?
Most of the people who hire me. They'll start with like 9 months. They never stop at 9 months. I generally, because of their choice, not because of me selling them, it's a 2 or 3 year project. And here's why. The first step is finding their strengths and their purpose. And the second step is finding out how they use their energy. The third step is self-control. That means how are you continuously using your energy and your strengths to create high performance in yourself. And what happens is we have this tendency when we start a new behavior over a period of 2 or 3 weeks, if we're not really being accountable to somebody, we have a tendency to go back to the old behavior. The old behavior you maybe have been doing for 20 years. Well, it's not going to change in a month. So it takes time, and it takes someone who's a very firm, and I'm a pretty straightforward coach. I mean, when I was talking to the guy last night, I didn't say, well, I'd like to suggest, or maybe. I didn't do that. What I said was, you're killing it, man. You're killing it right now. I mean, you gotta drop this self-guess, or this second guessing about him and about you and all that. So it takes a year, but people who really want to grow and who really want to develop, it's 2 or 3 year process.
But is it on weekly basis, daily, or like you just on weekly basis you visit and sit and see how the CEO is performing and you take notes, or how you do it, or just by questions and answers?
If you have enjoyed today's episode, I would like to invite you to check out efficientpreneurclub.com. The Efficientpreneur Club is the right membership for you if you've been working to grow your business for a while now and things aren't happening as fast as you want. If you are tired of generic courses, secretive gurus, and expensive mentors who charge $2,000 to $5,000 a month, then fob you off onto sub-coaches or connect with you in group coaching calls. If you are already stressed out about your business model, sales, productivity, team, and systems. If you are scrambling in the evenings and on the weekends and you never have time for yourself and your family. Those problems are not going to fix themselves unless you fix them today. Why? Because your business profitability and performance are not going to change unless you do, and your relationships and health will continue to be affected. Building and scaling a business becomes so stressful over time, but it doesn't have to be that way. The Efficientpreneur Club is a private and affordable one-on-one business coaching club for business owners and entrepreneurs who want to build and scale their business profitability and performance with less time, effort, and cost, and without risking their freedom. The Efficientpreneur Club will help you take your business to the next level with a private and affordable individual coaching with me personally. I tailor the program to your unique needs. I will help you clarify your direction, set a strategic action plan, and guide you step by step to build and scale your business efficiently. The Efficientpreneur Club will also provide access to an extensive how-to video library, the most highly recommended tools, and a supportive community of like-minded business owners to help you along the way with feedback, encouragement, and advice. The Efficientpreneur Club is the perfect place to be if you want to maximize your profits, minimize your workload, and scale your freedom and efficiency. So check it out at efficientpreneurclub.com and say bye-bye to generic courses, secretive gurus, and expensive mentors.
I do set up a schedule, and the schedule is typically an hour and a half every 2 weeks. But I'm 24/7, Ahmed. In other words, when a leader hires me, it's I am 24/7. So the guy who called me yesterday called me at 7 o'clock. He also called me on Sunday. He had another issue I want to deal with on Sunday. Now they don't abuse the time, my time, but they. Problems don't come in scheduled times, you know. And so I don't want a leader who's responsible for a lot of people to have to wait a week before they talk to me. I want them to talk to me right then, so that we can find some solution or some action step for them to do.
So they involve you also in the technicality of decision making in terms of, you know, technical things in the company, in terms of numbers or figures or what decision to take, or only on their emotional or mental state?
It's typically not in terms of technical issues, because that's more process oriented. It's more behavioral issues. And anyone who oh gosh, who's listening to this knows it's not so much. I mean, the processes only fail because people fail. Everything is a people problem. And so it's not just working with this individual in terms of emotions or his mental processing, but in terms of his behaviors. How does he behave with other people? How does he lead other people so they really want to follow him or her? And, you know, I think once I help a person get to that place to where they know that they're successful, then all the processes work. Let me give you a quick study that was done. I read a book probably 4 or 5 years ago called The Witch Doctors. I forgot the guys who wrote it, but they were basically evaluating all of the programs for coaching and consulting and all of that. And in that book, there's a psychologist who did a study, and he studied key leaders across the United States, and had quite a large population that he studied. And he found that the greatest fear of key leaders was that their subordinates find out how inadequate they felt in their job. Now, that's an emotional thing. It's a behavioral thing, but it's an emotional thing. And think how much energy those people are wasting worried that their subordinates or their team members aren't going to think they're smart or know what they're doing or whatever. But that was a pretty revealing study to me.
What do you do to reduce the stress of those individuals or executives? Like, what do you advise them to do, to techniques or tools or certain habits to minimize the stress?
Well, the first thing is that I really do want to find out what their behavioral needs are. For instance, I am not a structured person. I'm not a highly structured individual. I have learned my strength. One of my strengths is I've learned to be structured. I have your questions here. I have my answers there. I don't look at them, but I have them there. My need is not to be highly structured. My need is to take whatever the structure is and make it mine. In other words, I have to create a structure that works for me. So I can't just read a book and say, okay, here's the way you make goals, this is the way you do this, this is the way you do it. I have to take it and I have to put it in Bob's context and say, now how do I need to do this? Well, and I do it differently than probably a lot of people. So the first thing I want that person to know is that you've got to find ways to get those needs met. If you don't get your needs met, that opens you up for stress. For another example, if I need to feel value to Ahmed, and that's a need of mine. That's not a dysfunctional need, it's a need. If I need to feel value from you, and you're my superior who really is kind of more candid, matter of fact, straightforward, you know, whatever, you know, what do you want? Why are you here? And I don't feel that value, then over time I'm going to be stressed because I'm not getting my need met. If I am a person, for example, I have a high empathy level. My empathy, or how we deal with feelings, my strength is to be very candid and be more objective when I hear a feeling. Here's what you feel. Here's some things you can do. My need is to talk about, when I go through an emotion, I need to talk about it. I don't need anybody to give me the advice. The more I talk, the more I solve the problem in my own head. Now this happens. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No worries. I wanted to ask about how you shorten the time of the decision-making cycle between the executive and the team, their teams.
Okay. Everybody, I would have everybody take this profile that I use. It's a leadership profile, the Berkman. I'd have everybody do that, and then what we would do is we would look at everybody's decision-making need, because some people are very quick decision makers. They need to. They don't need to talk about it a whole lot. They need to, pull the trigger, make it happen. There are other people who need to process the decision. They need to know what's the process, why are we doing this, and all of that. There are other people who need to find the detail. What's the detail of this decision? And there's another group of people who's it going to affect? How's it going to help our people? When everybody on a team knows there are these 4 ways that people make decisions, then what happens is, what I do is I help them collaborate. So we're going to use the person who wants a quick decision. If we get bogged down, we're going to use him or her. Or and we also want to use the person who's a processor. If they get too bogged down in processing, the person who likes to make quick decisions can help them. In other words, we use each other's behaviors to come to the decision, and that makes decision making a whole lot faster and a whole lot easier.
Is poor judgment is part of the learning process to gain experience and a better judgment, or there is another way to make a better judgment?
I love that question. I just love it. Walter Wriston, who is, I think is retired, was a former chairman of the Citibank, said this, that good judgment comes from experience, and experience comes from poor judgment. So when people go through setbacks, when they go through adversity, when they go through trials, when they go through failures, the point is not to beat ourselves up because we went through the failure. It's to look at what we did, what was the learning from the failure. In one of my books, I have a statement that basically says that persistence without resistance is repetition. Now, let me say it again. Persistence without resistance is repetition. What that means is this, that if I am only persistent and I have no troubles, I have no resistance, I'm just being repetitious. It's just a repetitious thing. If you can envision a weightlifter. My oldest son was trying to get on the Olympic weightlifting team. And so what Bo would do is he took a 45-pound bar, he took a 45-pound plate, put it on one end, another 45-pound plate on the other end, had 135 pounds. Now, if he had done that, 100 times, definitely he would have gotten stronger. But the way he really increased his strength was to add more resistance or more weight. That's my example of when we come into conflict or we come into difficulties, that the difficulties teach us more than going to school and learning it from a book, let's say. I mean, I know so many people, and I'm sure you do, who come out of college and think I got this made. I'm gonna, this is the way to go. And man, they run into the world, and the world just beats them half to death. But it's the idea of taking those resistances and learning from them that really makes us exceptional leaders.
Do you believe that failure is a better teacher than success, or no?
I do. Because to me, success is what I've done right, and I celebrate the reward. I get the reward for what I've done right. But I won't get any better at whatever that is until I experience some failure in the process. And that's every profession profession I know. That people I've talked with have told me that their turning point in their life was some failure, whether it was a divorce or it was they got fired. I think it's one of the gurus in the consulting business says the best thing that could ever happen to a person is they get fired from a job. It's kind of like, why is that? Well, it awakens their creativity, their what they need to do next, how they need to move towards success. So I believe that failure is a great teacher.
So success basically drives people into their comfort zone.
Oh, that's a great way of saying it. Absolutely.
How do you define work-life balance?
That's always been a hard one for me. I don't know if I believe in it. And what I mean by that is, I struggled with this when my children were little, because we talk about being home and being at work. I think it's more the idea of quality rather than quantity. I am going to spend more quantity of time at work. So I'm not going to spend as much time with my children, the quantity of time. What I do need to do, though, is I need to, when I'm there with them or with my wife, I need it to be quality time. And so it's like not dragging home everything from the office, and my poor wife and kids have to they don't get any of my time. So for me, it's more of an issue of being present where you are and having some I don't know if we call it equilibrium or whatever. When I'm at work, I'm at work. Now, my family knows that they can call me and they can interrupt me no matter what I'm doing. And the kids knew it, my wife knew it, and they would. I told my staff, I said, there are two people who can interrupt my meetings. One is if a doctor calls me, another doctor calls me, and he has somebody he wants to talk about, he can or she can interrupt, and my children and my wife. So there was like a priority there. But a lot of people get out of balance, particularly men, maybe men more than women, because they have to prove themselves. And and in the United States, and this may be true of all around the world, but in the United States, our identity is attached to our work, and that's a mistake. That's a big mistake.
What's the difference between fulfillment and happiness?
You ask some really, really interesting questions. Fulfillment for me is living my purpose. Happiness is an event. I'm happy. I was happy when we got our new Bichon Frise dog. I'm happy when we have an opportunity to sit, my wife and I have an opportunity to sit down and talk. Fulfillment comes from me living that purpose. Fulfillment to me is a heart thing. I know happiness is an emotion, but happiness is more of a head thing to me. It's an experience. It's an event thing.
So fulfillment is only linked with the purpose, or it's linked with so many different things, like let's say family, kids, fun, business, financial wealth, physical wealth, spiritual wealth, so many different aspects.
Yeah.
Or mainly linked with the purpose.
Yeah, it's linked with the purpose. So when I walk into a convenience store or a department store or whatever, I need to go fulfilling my purpose. And my purpose is, to, as I said earlier, to make a difference in the lives of people by helping them discover their potential and maximize their energy. So when I go into a restaurant, for example, I can fulfill my purpose by finding out the name of my waiter or waitress. and ask them, how are you doing? What time did your shift start? Gosh, it was great food, whatever. I can fulfill my purpose everywhere that I go. Now, will every waiter or waitress make me happy? No, some of them are miserable when they come to work, so they're not going to make me happy. But I can still fulfill my purpose.
Is every employee can be a leader, or because they are an employees and they have managers or leaders above them, it doesn't make sense that everyone has to be a leader?
Yeah, isn't that an age-old question? People are always asking, what's the definition of leadership? And I would say no, not everyone is going to be a leader. I know of the people that I've worked with. I had a guy in the steel industry. I didn't work with him, but he started off his annual meeting by saying, he was CEO of this company, by saying, I feel like the organ grinder, and you all are a bunch of monkeys. Now, that is not an energy refueler. I guarantee it is not. But he was in a leadership position, but he was not a leader. So I know people, and we all do know people who are in. I finished working with a guy not too long ago, his company, and he went right back to the old way of doing things. He's a firefighter. He's a manager, but he's never going to be a leader.
Does that mean that if I want to deliver a bad news or tell an employee that you are not performing well and I have to pressure him, I should do that indirectly through my assistant or through his direct manager, and I always show myself as a leader only in the positive events?
No, it doesn't. It's the idea when you talk about like talking to someone about their performance and the leader not doing it but letting managers do it. Is that what the question is?
I'm saying that you say that leaders should not demotivate the employees. So my question was, as a leader or the CEO of the company, I should not, let's say, if I see an employee who is not performing well, I should not pressure him directly as a CEO or the leader or the influencer of the company or I represent the image of the company to pressure him, and I should pressure him indirectly through through his direct manager or through my assistant, because sometimes you cannot. You have to, as a CEO, if someone is not performing well, you have to give him a hard time, but in a different ways, of course. But that's a question.
Yeah, and see, what I would say is that if I have a poor performing employee, my first thing would be I would have the manager or the supervisor or whoever to take care of that. But let me look at it from a bigger perspective. We often see correcting behaviors as a conflict. We see it as confrontation and conflict. And see, I don't believe that. When you are wanting to correct behavior, then what you're literally doing is you're disciplining the individual to do something better. And I think it needs to be done through their direct supervisor. I don't think a CEO needs to go down and usurp his authority and jump over his supervisor to correct behavior. But there is a thing, and this is a whole other topic, but there is a thing, this business of disciplining employees. A discipline is a Greek word that means to save the mind. It doesn't mean to criticize, beat to death, whatever. It means to save the mind. So literally, when we're disciplining someone, we're not disciplining them because they did something wrong. We're disciplining them so they don't do it again. So it's a growth thing. And if a leader communicates that methodology, that thought process to his or her vice presidents, supervisors, whatever, that when you're disciplining, you are disciplining to correct future behavior. So we're going to make discipline a positive aspect of our organization. I wrote a course on that.
How to achieve self-awareness and why it is important for leadership?
Oh, gosh, that's another one of your great questions. If I'm not self-aware, I live by default, which means I live by every event that comes my way. So if I have a flat tire, then I have to get, I operate by default. I have to get all angry and all frustrated and everything else. But if I'm living by purpose, and I'm aware of that purpose, I'm aware of what makes me sad. I'm aware of what makes me exuberant or happy. For example, when my energy level goes low, I will invariably withdraw from people, and I get irritable very easy. So I know that I'm self-aware that I need to keep my energy level high so that I don't drop into what I call the threshold of energy, that low level of energy. So self-awareness is so key. The first 5 steps of my coaching is all about self-awareness. The 6th step is about their team. Because if a leader's not self-aware, the same old behaviors are going to happen over and over and over again. The other thing is I think people appreciate transparency. I think they appreciate a leader who can say, I'm not good at this. This is not my forte, or, whatever. And that self-awareness is really encouraging. In my book, it's really encouraging to the followers in an organization. Or in family.
Can high performance lead to high level of anxiety?
Yes, totally. It's another question I just love. I mean, I think you read my materials. We come into the world with a want to. I want to perform. I want to please. I want to prove. All of those are very, very good behaviors. They're all behaviors that we need to adopt and work on. When we get stressed to a certain level, if that want to becomes a need to, for example, if I want to perform becomes a I need to perform, then we develop this, what I call hyper-responsibility. It's all my responsibility. It's my fault. It's I have to do it. I have to correct. It all becomes a very, very negative process. And that negative process, I found 3 things, these 3 things that I'm talking to you about, that lead to anxiety attacks and panic attacks. So when your performance goes to being hyper-responsible, then you're setting yourself up to have a truckload of anxiety. Pleasing people, very natural. We have a desire to meet the needs of others. If that pleasing moves to people pleasing, then I'm going to set myself up for anxiety. If I have to please you, for example, when I come on your radio program, then I'm going to say what I think you need to hear, what you want me to say. But if I come on to your program and I want to please you, then I'm going to say what I believe about it. Now, will you agree with everything? Maybe, maybe not. But the bottom line is, if we get into people-pleasing, then we get into setting ourselves up for a panic attack or for long-term anxiety. I don't say this. I have 5 leaders right now that I'm working with about their anxiety level. And it goes from people who are afraid they're going to die to people who are afraid they're going to lose their job. I mean, it's all that anxiety. The third thing is proving ourselves. Everybody wants to prove themselves. We get confidence in our personal capabilities. But if that proving, I want to prove, moves to I need to prove, then I'm driven. That's where if we call it work-life balance, that's where people get out of balance. That's where people get angry faster. That's where people experience the anxiety at a higher level, or even get physically ill. So what I found is those three behaviors are the precipitators for an awful lot of anxiety in our life.
How your work-life routine look like?
Mine?
Your work-life routine.
Yeah, I get up. I'm an early morning person. I wake up 4:30 or 5 o'clock, and my wife's kind of a later person, which is good. So I get up and I do my meditation. I do some quiet time, and then I do something that my father taught me a long time ago. He always said, always paint the back of the house first. Now, what that means is if I paint the back of the house first, I'm going to paint the front of the house. But if I paint the front of the house first, I may never get around to the back of the house. So the idea is I always do my detail work in the morning when I have more energy, when I'm fresher, and all of that. I do the more fun things like this, or meet with people in the afternoon, because it doesn't require as much energy. And then I stop at 5 or 5:30, unless one of my clients calls me. You know, somebody asked my wife the other day, you know, why does Bob not come out to these networking events? And she said he just doesn't like to be out, you know, in the evening. And I said to her, I said, you know, if people can't get in touch with me between 4:30 in the morning and 5 o'clock in the afternoon, they probably don't need to touch base with me anyway. Now, everybody's not that way. I always write or build my courses when my energy is the highest, and generally that's the morning. So I do a lot of that in the morning. And as I said, I go and do individual appointments in the afternoon.
What's the techniques that you're using to write more efficiently? Like when you start a book, you structure it first, or you just write and go with the flow? What's your strategy or technique? Because writing is hard.
Yes, it is. Yeah, it took me 7 years, Ahmed, to write my first book. I mean, it took me a year to write my second book, and it took me 6 months to write the last two. My strategy is I have to have a rough outline, and then I have to get into I call it my heart writing. A lot of times we want to educate people. I wanted to educate people, and people need more education like they need a hole in it. What I have to do is I have to think, whose life was impacted? Like I've given you a lot of illustrations about people. Whose life was impacted by this principle? And then I'll write about that, and I'll use that example, and I find that it speaks more to people. Now, I'm kind of I call it a junkyard dog. When I get a hold of something, like a bone, I got it. You know, I will, regrettably, I'll spend a little too much time at times writing, and I have to back myself off, or my wife says back off. But I love to write now. I mean, I'm better at it, and then after I get it done, I send it to my editor, and you know, we go from there.
Did you self-publish your books or published?
I did. I self-published them, and that's probably because I could get them out faster. Yeah, the first book I wrote, like I said, it took 7 years. Was Energy Matters: Tapping the Power Within. The second book that I wrote was The Secret Power and Stress. Actually, I wrote 2 books on the secret power and stress. One is reducing the stress in our inside, and the other is reducing the stress in relationships. And then the last one was The Power of Personal Energy. And I just finished a course on energy overcoming anxiety. So, you know, I just love doing it. I self-published them because it got out faster. And sometimes I use them as business cards.
What's best marketing strategy that helped
Mm-hmm.
you selling your books or selling your coaching business?
Right. Yeah, and see, coming back, that you're exactly right. Coming back to the my purpose. See, if my purpose is to touch the lives of people, I don't want to spend a lot of time marketing books. I'd rather give them away and let people, call me and say, hey, I'd like, how about coaching me or whatever, that kind of thing. So yeah, it is. You're right. It's a good marketing strategy.
Any other hobbies?
Scuba diving. I work out. I used to do triathlons till my back gave way, but I love triathlons. Love scuba diving. It's kind of like going back to the womb for me. I mean, it's just a very pleasurable thing. And I've always worked out since my Air Force days. I've always been a real fanatic about. I'm older now, so I can't do as much. But yeah, those would be my other hobbies.
Top 3 mentors.
I have unusual mentors, and I'm going to come back to the book thing in just a second. There is a guy named Dana Cushman. Dana, he's dead now, was a potato farmer in Maine. And Dana had this depth of spirituality that I just loved. And he taught me a lot of things about living life. I had another, Bill McGrain, a guy in Cincinnati, Bill McGrain Sr. Bill loved me and I loved him. I mean, he was older. He was just the kind of guy who, he taught me my most important statement. I know you have that as a question. And that is always, always, always ask questions. And that just resonated with me, to always ask people questions. But Bill is one. Also, a person who's probably more well known is John C. Maxwell. John Maxwell wrote all the leadership books. I'm a founding partner with John's leadership, or not leadership, but coaching and speaking and training program. And he's a very interesting guy. He's really a great guy and a great indirect mentor.
What are the top 3 favorite books?
The Christian Bible, and I read 3 books every year. The Christian Bible, Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, and Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. I read those 3 books every year. Now I read a couple books a month, but those are my 3 favorite books. Love Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning.
If you have a chance to ask your younger self, what would you ask your younger self?
I would say...
To advise, sorry, not to ask.
Yeah. Learn to relax sooner. As I said, I could be like I used the junkyard dog thing, like, if they get a bone, they're not going to let it go. I really pushed things in my younger life. And, all the pushing didn't get things any faster. They just created more stress, is what they did. But if I could go back and talk to my younger self, I would say, Bob, just kind of relax a little more.
Most people, when I ask, wise people like yourself have long experience in life, always they answer the same. They answer this question in the same way: that relax, slow down,
really
take your time.
Yeah.
Top 3 people go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say that's great for you. You're a young man. I mean, you're getting all this information, so it's going to be great for you.
Thank you. Top 3 people that you are inspired by.
I was inspired. He passed away last year. Warren Bennis was one person I was really inspired by. His writing. I never met him, but his writing. And also, I'm really inspired by. Maxwell was another one I'm inspired by, because of the family he came from, and because I mean, he's just a very unique man. And, I struggled with the third person until I realized I'm inspired by my wife. I mean, my wife, it's maddening sometimes. She wakes up in a brand new world every single day. And I'm thinking, how do you do that? How in the world do you do that? But she does. I love her dearly. She's the queen, and, she's a great inspiration for me.
What's your favorite book for Maxwell?
I like the, gosh, I'm blocking on it, the one about teams. All his books have a similar title. But anyway, he wrote one on teams, and I like that one.
What makes you really happy?
Oh man, as I said earlier, I love to see people be successful. I've never been jealous of people's success. If they got ahead, I just haven't been that type of person. And when people call me and say, you know what, guess what, I just got this brand new whatever job or whatever, I'm just thrilled to death for them. It makes me really happy. And my kids as well. I have a son, we have 5, so I have a son that's a pilot. He's always having something that just, thrills me to death. I just love hearing their successes.
Last question, how people can contact you?
I'm going to give you my email address, Dr. Bob, DRBOB, at EnergyDrivenLeader.com. That's Dr. Bob at EnergyDrivenLeader.com. People generally don't give out their telephone number, but I do, 469-387-6655, or my website, www.EnergyDrivenLeader.com.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bob, for this journey. It's unbelievable. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Listen, Ahmed, I've been looking forward to this, and you're a great host, and thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Be efficient and stay efficient, and see you soon with another leading expert. Thanks for watching or listening. It means the world to me if you would leave an honest review of the show on iTunes or any other podcast platform that you are listening through. And big thanks to all the people who have already reviewed the show.
Discover how to build and scale your business profitability and performance with less time, effort, and cost. Check out efficientpreneur.com.